kill her. I'm gonna kill her with a 44 Magnum pistol. I have a 44 Magnum pistol. I'm gonna kill her with that gun. Did you ever see what a 44 Magnum pistol would do to a woman's face? I mean, it would fucking destroy it.
We do not have a scientific explanation for them. That does not mean they're not real. It simply means we're not there. My own view, and I think Whitley's view as well, is that the paranormal is all about the gaps or the fissures in our worldview, in our categories, and it's all about confusing us. And if you think you understand the paranormal, you clearly don't, because it's about us abandoning our understanding or our categories.
See, I don't think it's a mistake that in the title of the book that the supernatural is not all one word with a small
Right.
n. It's two separate words for a reason.
Right. That's the key. That's the key point of the whole book. And of course, when you just say the title, people lose that. They think it's one word, supernatural, but it's actually two words. Yeah, I mean, the main argument of the book is that what people think of the paranormal or the strange or the supernatural is actually natural. It's part of our world. These things happen all the time. We do not have a scientific explanation for them. That does not mean they're not real. It simply means we're not there. And that we live in a world in which these things are perfectly natural. So we're trying to make that argument in the book, essentially.
I mean, it makes sense because there's a lot of things in the natural world that we don't fully understand as it is. I mean, we're finding, especially getting into microbiology and microphysics, we're finding more and more things that are new information that we never would have thought of 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. And even just discovering new species on the planet from time to time as well. Like, we haven't mastered everything in what we think is the known universe, so why can we say that this is something that's supposed to be the unknown?
New Bedford's home for Red Sox baseball and Phil Paleologos mornings for
And welcome to Spooky South Coast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, psychic medium Stephanie Burke. The gang is all here for another edition of Spooky South Coast. We talk about the paranormal each and every Saturday night, even when the Red Sox are on our station. So that is where we're at right now. We are broadcasting live on Spooky TV on SpookySouthCoast.com on YouTube. We are not broadcasting on WBSM at the moment, but we hope to join the show in progress later on once the Red Sox are over. So that will be the plan. So if you're listening on the radio, you're not hearing us right now, so we can talk about you, and you won't know what we're saying. But we will try and get on the radio because we have a guest tonight that's joining us in just a few moments, Dean McMurray, the military medium. And Dean has agreed to do some readings for the audience a little bit later on. So we want to make sure that we get on the radio for that because otherwise, you know, the chat room crowd, the internet crowd, they're not as prone to call in. But we know, what's the record? I think we said we took 27 calls for the last medium that we had on the air. Why didn't that come on?
I don't know. What are you trying to do to me?
There you go.
I want to say Lynn Marie holds the title for that.
Yeah, I think it was 27 phone calls. But that was because we had her on, you know, for the 2 hours, and we had her doing readings for most of the 2 hours. But
right.
That's a record that I don't know if we need to try to break tonight or anytime soon.
I don't know.
I think that there's a lot of value in having the readings over the phone for the caller, but not necessarily for all the listeners. I mean, it's good to kind of see what the psychic or the medium can do.
Right.
But
it's fascinating.
At the same time, it's also kind of a personal thing for each caller.
Right.
So it doesn't always like play really well in the rebroadcast for people, but we like to offer that as something because we want you to see what the guest can do, and we want you to know how the guest's gift works, but also at the same time, you know, we want to put out an entertaining program. So
correct.
We'll try and have a good balance of that as we go tonight with the show. But again, that'll be a little bit later on. We'll be joined by Dean McMurray, the military medium. And I just want to put out a programming note for next week's show. Next week, we're going to be joined by Steve Ubaney, who wrote the book, Who Murdered Elvis? So we're going to be talking on, it'll be 2 days after the anniversary of Elvis's death. We will talk about who murdered Elvis. So that should be a fascinating discussion as well, because, I mean, I just assumed Elvis died on the toilet, like, you know, like the urban legend says. He had a heart attack. He was not a healthy man at that point in his life. So I just assumed that he keeled over and died from health issues of some kind.
His crimes, I don't know if you want to call it a crime scene, but photo of him did make the circulation around.
No, we'll see. We'll see what happens when we talk with Steve Ubaney next week about that. We will also talk a little bit tonight. Well, why don't we just discuss it now because listen, I feel like it's already Halloween season.
I feel like that August 1st every single year, and I itch to put out decorations. So
there's people are saying, I haven't been in a supermarket, but they're saying the Halloween candy's already out in the stores.
It's true, and it's super cute this year.
The Halloween decorations are already out in the Walmarts and the Targets and all those places. I haven't been in one of those stores either. So maybe this year things are kind of starting a little bit earlier than people expect. So if they're going to start doing that in retail, why can't we do that from a paranormal sense? So as far as I'm concerned, we're in the Halloween season now. And it'll be now until next August, as far as I'm concerned. But
right.
Yeah.
At least until mid-November. I think Thanksgiving is where you have to kind of cut off the Halloween season, but we've got lots of stuff going on. And if you go to SpookySouthCoast.com and you sign up to get alerts from the website, you'll get alerts when we have new stuff that's going on. But we do have, I know, Stephanie, you're going to be in the New York area again. You're going to be returning to that event this year, right?
In October, yes. So I will be back in Sleepy Hollow for the Festival of Witches.
And that's way better than the festival that I'm going to in October.
What's that?
The Festival of Bitches.
Oh.
I just wanted to say that because we're on YouTube.
Because we can.
So I know I can get away with it.
Yes. But while we're here, I'll be in...
it's a dog grooming
I'm going to Gettysburg
festival.
for the first time next
breeding
weekend.
Festival.
You'll enjoy it.
So I can't wait to go to Gettysburg, but I'll be there to support the Wounded Warrior Project of Pennsylvania.
And then for people that want to make the trip down there, it's a star-studded lineup. So it's a big lineup for sure, and it's called the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash, and I believe it's only a $10 donation to get in. So come on out for a good cause. And of course, we have the Plymouth Paracon coming up in September, and people can get their tickets to that as well. I did book a bunch of libraries.
You did. That's right.
I always like to get out there and talk to the people. And the problem is last year I couldn't really do that because I was working in the newsroom. So I didn't have nights off. So I couldn't really get out and do some of these library events. I did a couple of things that were requested of me before that I'd taken the news job, like a year before. And I just kind of planned them on one day and took a day off. But now that I have the new job, the day job, I can have my nights free. So just to give you a quick rundown of what I have booked already, on Tuesday, October 16th, I'll be at the Wareham Free Library. Thursday, October 18th, the Brooks Free Library in Harwich on the Cape. Thursday, October 25th, making the drive again to the Provincetown Public Library. I better see Adam and Ben Berry there this year. And then Monday, October 29th, the Lakeville Public Library. But I'm in discussions with a bunch of other libraries to find dates that work and a couple of other organizations. But we are doing something on Thursday, October 11th. I'll be speaking for the Mattapoisett Historical Society. This is going to be a little bit different. This is going to be, instead of being like a library lecture where you come in and it's free admission and all that stuff, there's going to be a $10 admission fee. I will be giving a presentation, but then after that, we're going to have like a little mini investigation of their 1821 meeting house. So that's
cool.
Yeah, it's just $10 to get in, and they've never, they don't really have any reports of paranormal activity there, but we're going to try and see what we can find. So again, that's Thursday, October 11th, just $10 to come in, and it helps to support the Mattapoisett Historical Society. So
that should be awesome.
I've seen that building so many times driving by, and I've said, wow, that looks like a place that might have some history. So this will be our chance to find out.
Anybody that has not listened to you lecture, you are awesome.
Well, thank you.
And I don't say that just because I have to sit across from you.
Now the pressure is on. I can't disappoint now. And what's great about these is I'm doing different lectures at each one. So if you wanted to go and see all of these, you're going to see something different each time. There is going to be... Are
you doing my favorite one?
Which one?
The spiritualism one.
Nobody has actually asked for that one yet. I know that in Wareham, I'm doing just a night of different paranormal topics because I give them a list of things that I can talk about, and then they say, well, I'd like to do this one, I'd like to do this one, but then I always offer to do one custom tailored for their town, and usually that's what people pick. Wareham was interested in a combination of Lizzie Borden stuff, and well, they couldn't decide between Lizzie Borden stuff and haunted objects. So I said, tell you what, we'll call it a night of paranormal discussion, and I'll talk about both things. So that'll be at the Wareham Library. Brooks Free Library in Harwich, I believe I'm doing haunted Cape Cod stories. And goes to the South Coast, kind of combined. Provincetown Public Library, I'll be talking about haunted Provincetown, and in the Lakeville Public Library, I'll be talking exclusively about haunted objects. So
And Rochester, Mattapoisett, for the Mattapoisett Historical Society, that's going to be like a paranormal 101 and one-on-one. If you want to work individually with me, we can do that too. But so that will be kind of for those of you who are first timers and have never done this and want to, you're kind of a little bit worried about spending the money to go out to a big paranormal event, and you just want to kind of get your feet wet and see what it's all about. That's the one where it's only $10 to get in. You'll get to use some of the equipment, check it out, and then you can kind of go from there. And we did announce a new event this week for the fall season as well. You know that we have the exoneration at the Parson and Barnard House in North Andover. That's October 13th. On October 20th, we have an Erie night at Edaville. But on Saturday, November 16th, we'll be having Wicked Worcester at the Bull Mansion, which is a place that has never been investigated before. So I think it's from 1876. It was the Wesson family of Smith & Wesson fame had the house commissioned, had the building of it commissioned. It was designed by one of the co-designers of Central Park in New York City. It's what they call a Gothic stick style. And so this mansion was given to the daughter of the Wesson family upon her marriage, and it later became a Grand Army of the Republic Hall. And so now they have memorials to all the fallen soldiers in there as well. So there's lots of potential for activity, but they've never actually had any investigation happen. And they haven't really had a lot of... They've been running it as a bistro for a couple of years now. So they're still pretty new to the area.
Well, I can't wait to get in there and see what it's all about.
It should be fun, and it's for sale right now at SpookySouthCoast.com. And also, one more thing we want to let people know about, the special deal going on for the Wicked Waters Cruise.
Yes, it's a super special deal.
You can put less money down than ever before.
Right. I mean, who in the world has heard of a $25 deposit to go on a cruise? And this is amazing. So right now, I believe for the next couple of days, right? We have 3 more days left for this.
To get $25 down, you can reserve your spot. You have to use one of our codes. You can use the code Burke for Stephanie. You can use the code Tim for me. You can use the code Porter for Porter, right? That's Porter's code.
I think so.
So, but
I'm only concerned about my code, really.
I think we need to have a code off here and see.
Code off.
What we'll do is better? We should, I was trying to think of what we could do as a reward for people who.
Are you trying to make this a competition?
I am. Because a little competition is a good thing.
So carry on, my friend. Carry on.
I'll tell you what. If I win, if I have the most people use my code, which my code is Tim. If the most people use my code, everybody that used my code will get to vote for what I drink the first night on the cruise.
That's not that fun.
It is if you see me when I've been drinking.
Well, I have seen you when you've been drinking, and it is hilarious. However, I think I'm going to win.
The only thing I won't have is cottage cheese, and I can't think of any drinks that involve cottage cheese, but anything else I will put into my body.
I'm currently winning right now, so.
Well, what about the woolly buffalo?
Step it up. That is? No, what's that? You're going to get right up on that, Mike Moniz. It's not that great.
You know that rubber strip that they put on the bar that they mix all the drinks in?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's gross.
That's poured into a shot glass. And
well, listen, the fine folks of Norwegian Cruise Lines
will not allow that.
They keep everything spotless.
Right.
So I don't think I have to worry about that. But
so if you get wild and you want to cruise with us, it's next May 10th to the 17th, and we are cruising from Boston to Bermuda on the Wicked Waters Cruise, and we are ghost hunting over a shipwreck in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle.
Nice.
So,
you know what would be terrible is if Ty decided to join the cruise and push everybody to use my code and made Thai Tuesday drinks that I would have to drink. That would not be a good idea.
That is so terrifying. And before you stop announcing things, I will not be here for the next 2 weeks, obviously, because of Gettysburg, but I will be at Michigan Paracon the week after. So if you are in the Michigan area or if you are close by, come visit me, because that's a huge lineup and tons of amazing people. So come on by and say hi.
That's the one that I've been trying to get into for years, and they just don't want me. So while you're doing that, I'll be here doing the show.
Okay. I can call you.
No.
No?
No, don't call us.
Why?
Because you'll be busy.
I might not be busy.
Well, if you're not busy with all those people that'll be out there,
well,
I'll be worried about you.
Really, but
yeah, no. From what I've heard, these parties you can't miss. Okay. So even if you don't party yourself, you have to go just for the stories.
Okay.
Then you can call me afterwards.
All right, I will do that.
With the stuff that you can't tell on the air.
You got it.
But yeah, no, don't worry about us. I tell Moniz the same thing all the time when you're out there. Don't worry about us. Do what you got to do. Go out and have fun. Don't worry, we'll be fine. we'll be here at least next week talking about the death of Elvis, which you're going to miss that
I know.
one. But
I know.
I don't know how much of an Elvis fan you are, but
I'm not, but that stuff fascinates me no matter what.
What I'm upset about is Dustin won't be able to call in.
Right.
Because Dustin's a huge Elvis fan.
Well, I will be with Dustin in Gettysburg.
I would have expected he would call in during that show, but I figured with the timing, we kind of had to sync it up to the anniversary of
I can tell him about it. And
death or / murder.
I think we're done at like 10 o'clock at night at that event, so we'll be up.
Well, if he wants to call in, he's more than welcome.
I'll let him know.
And if you want to call in during the course of the show, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420 is the number. Again, we're going to be joined tonight by our guest, Dean McMurray. He is the military medium. You can check out his website, deanmcmurray.com, if you want to find out more about him. And maybe when you hear him on the show, you want to book a reading with him or see where he's going to be around the country. You can do that at deanmcmurray.com. I also wanted to mention this week, too, that I had to go through as part of my job with the day job that I do here at the radio station is basically, for those who don't know, I'm kind of in charge of the websites and the social media for our two stations. And as part of that, they're going through and they're taking out a lot of the old images that we have in our library that, because, back in the early days of putting this stuff up, it was kind of the Wild West. People were just grabbing images from anywhere, putting them up there without permission. Mm-hmm. And so the company is, trying to streamline everything to only approved images and all that stuff. So I had to do what was called a historical review of all the stories that have been popular over the years that keep popping up. And there were a number of spooky South Coast paranormal related stories that were popping up as being significant drivers of traffic, even to this day. Stuff that I'd written in 2012 that's still getting attention today. So because those are doing well, and thankfully, I used approved images because I was kind of ahead of the curve on that, because we've had some of our own image issues with SpookySouthCoast.com. But because of that, I was able to keep those stories up there. But it got me thinking that there's probably a lot of stuff that I can write for the sites now that I don't have to cover news all the time about paranormal stuff. And I know all the kinds of stuff in this area that I can write about, and I will be putting out stuff about the South Coast. But if you even have stories on a national level that you think need to be told, if you want to email me, tim@SpookySouthCoast.com, and let me know, we can put something together and I can get it up there so we can get those stories out, because I realize that there's not a lot of paranormal content out there on some of our other station sites. They always do really well. So if you have any if there's anything that you think is kind of an underutilized paranormal location, or an what's the word I'm looking for? A lesser known place, then let me know about it, and we'll see if we can't feature it. Because as we get into the Halloween season, or now that we're in it, we're declaring ourselves in it, people want to go out and explore these places. People want to learn about these places, even if they're just never going to go. If they're never going to get off their couch, they still want to read about them at this time of year. So we can kind of help feature them and maybe get them some more attention. So tim@SpookySouthCoast.com is the way to send all that stuff to me. All right, should we get going with our guest tonight? I think he's around and ready. I'm just going to send him a message, because we are going to connect with him over Skype, and because we are not on the radio. Hold on, let me check that. Nope, we're not going to be on the radio. It's still the Red Sox. So because of that, we're going to just connect with him live on Skype, and then through the magic of editing, we'll delete that part later on, so that you won't know that we're trying to connect. So let's see if we can do that. Make sure I put it in correctly, so we don't go over the air. This is the real professional part of the show. Hi, Dean, are you with us? Hi, Dean, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little, whoops, the audio was a little muffled, but
well,
hear me okay?
You sound great to us, so I'll try and speak up a little bit.
Yep, you're good to go now, man. It was just the initial connection.
I think that happens a little bit. So thank you for joining us tonight. And rather than give everybody, read everybody a bio of you, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your story?
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it. It's an honor being on with you guys. I always share with folks, I really consider myself just a small town kid. Grew up in northern Minnesota, right on the Canadian border. And then, like a lot of, people from that area, went off to serve in the military, subsequently served 14 and a half years with the regular Army. And then went on to serve another 10 years active duty with the Army National Guard in the state of North Dakota. And, it's a lot of people ask me saying, well, did you know when you were in the military, as far as your psychic abilities, or that you were a medium? How did this all kick off? And it's interesting because when I was in the military, I wasn't open to psychics. I wasn't open to the paranormal realm. I wasn't open to any of that. And, I joke around and I always say the craziest conversation I would have was with my wife about what type of aromatherapy she's going to use, what type of incense or whatever. And but it wasn't until my last deployment, which was about 8 years ago, that when I got back from deployment, a lot of what I call paranormal activity started happening in my home. And to define the activity that was going on was clocks and pictures started flying off the wall. And, quite honestly, it was like, what the F is going on, right? And it's like, what the heck? And for a guy that was, you think of coming from the typical alpha male world of not believing in this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're right in the thick of it. Quite honestly, scared the heck out of me. I'd be more comfortable facing down like an enemy insurgent because it was something that I understood or recognized. And my wife had confided in me when I was overseas that she had been consulting a local psychic in our area. And I was jokingly referring to her as the voodoo chick. And so I said, of course, the first words out of my mouth was you need to get a hold of your voodoo chick friend and get her over here because there's weird stuff going on. And of course, she comes over and tells me that my grandfather's there. My grandfather was a World War I veteran, and I'm kind of looking at her sideways thinking, clearly I was not in a space of, to receive that message. I wasn't, and I was just kind of thinking, when do you leave? And I was trying to stay nice about it, the Minnesota, North Dakota nice type deal. And, it's like, so she ended up leaving, and I was like, well, she's smoking her own sage. That's what I was thinking in my head. And fast forward a couple weeks, and things weren't getting quieter. They were only getting, louder. And so I was washing bottles for my then newborn son around midnight, and all of a sudden I had a knowing that washed over me, that clear cognizance, that clear knowing that washed over me that my grandmother was with me. And I was really struggling with, how the heck do I know this is my grandma? And, I was battling this in my head, going back and forth between my heart and my head going, I don't know, but it's, I knew for a fact that it was her, and I was thinking I was going crazy, and, and then, so I was like, well, the heck with it, I'm just going to go to bed. And I'm laying in bed talking to her one way, it's I think it's a normal thing when we have loved ones that are crossed over, and all of a sudden you have you sense their presence, and saying all of a sudden, what would you say to somebody that passed decades ago, right? And but as I talked to her one way, saying that I loved her and missed her, my ego kind of kicked up and said, you know what, Dean, you're just making this up. You must be tired, whatever. If she was really here, she could prove it. And so as soon as those thoughts left my head, the room turned absolutely ice cold. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, she's got my attention. And So, of course, then my logic kind of comes back and goes, that's just the off-peak power. The wife has the window open somewhere, you know, so I'm trying to debunk what I'm experiencing. And quite honestly, because I knew at my core that if I couldn't put something logical to it, it would probably scare the crap out of me. And so, you know, I continued talking to her one way. I wasn't receiving anything other than these sensations. And all of a sudden, my ego popped up, and once again, and said, you know what, Dean, you're tired, you're scared. This is just all bull, you know, BS. It's just all bull. It's all in your head. You know, if she was really there, why don't you just touch me? Well, let's just get it out in the open. Why don't you just touch me, and then it'll be done. And so once again, as soon as those thoughts left my head, I'd kind of describe it as a gentle yet firm pressure from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet that pushed me into the mattress. And it wasn't something that was malicious. It wasn't something that was mean, but where my body quite literally became heavier than lead, and where I could feel the mattress sink underneath of me. I could hear the springs compress. I could, you know, so I had all these, you know, experiences, if you will, the audio and the physical. And I was like, quite honestly, I was like, holy crap, what seal to hell did I break? Who did I make mad? And I was like, and most importantly, I was like, how do I stop it? And so, you know, I always call it the 6-year-old little boy within me kind of came out and was like, all right, Grandma, love you, see you soon. And as soon as I said that, I was kind of like, you know, leave, you need to leave now. It was like nothing ever happened. The weight came off, the room returned to normal temperature. But I was sitting straight up in bed, covered in light sweat, going completely out of breath, going, oh my God, what just happened? And I was trying to put, you know, words to what was just happening. And, you know, my wife, who never is a deep sleeper, and, you know, we just had a newborn child, she was sleeping like she had never slept before. And I'm waking her up going, there is somebody here in the house. And she's thinking a robber, or, you know, and I was like, no, there's a spirit here. And she's looking at me like, how do you know that? And I was like, right? I don't know. And I said, you need to get a hold of that voodoo chick and have her come back to the house. And basically, long story short, is that moment in time was what I call my awakening, and really catapulted me forward into, you know, and it presented a lot of different opportunities. Not that they weren't there prior, but it really awakened me to the possibility of something more than myself. And every time that I would experience something, because I went on to take classes and really explore and understand what was going on. And every time that I would be very quick to dismiss something or get back into that skeptical mind, it was like my grandmother was was over there gently reminding me, going, Dean, do you remember that event a while back? And it was always, oh yeah, I can't forget that. And saying, well, can you explain it? And be like, well, I can find words to explain it, but I really can't explain it, you know, at a deeper level. And she goes, well, how about you just try to stay open? It was never, you need to believe. It was, how about you try to stay open? And, you know, every time that I have used that premise going forward, I was able to experience some wonderful, beautiful things. And it was really more about moving from my head, the ego, into that heart space, and really about feeling things and really experiencing things at a deeper level. And then shortly afterwards, all of a sudden it seemed like a switch was flipped, and where I started receiving messages. And I was like, this is just absolutely nuts. What's going on? And, quite honestly, where I went on to take some development classes and understand what being a medium meant for me, not anybody else, but really on a personal journey of mediumship for myself, because I was like, am I going to be, do I see myself at the time? I did not see myself giving readings. Absolutely not, because my plans were to retire from the military and work for the local VA. I did not have plans to work as a medium. And, what's the old saying, when man plans, God laughs?
Right, yeah.
Right? And, quite honestly, I had several folks that gave me readings in the course of my development prior to my retirement. And they had told me, you're going to be doing something completely different than what you believe that you will. And how right they were, because, I think May marked the 5th year that I've been retired after a total of 24 years. And not that I feel that makes me special. I don't feel that serving that many years in the military makes me special, because so many talented men and women, fellow veterans, and folks that are currently serving, do that day in and day out. So I certainly don't consider myself special in that sense, but I find it, I always struggle with that, saying, why now? Why in my 40s? Why didn't it show up when I was, 4 years old or 6 years old? And, a lot of people ask, saying, well, if you didn't know back when you were young, was there something very traumatic that happened to you while you were overseas? And, kind of looking back into my military tours or whatever, I did time in Afghanistan, but there was no awakening after Afghanistan. There was a cool story. Maybe later on I'll share that. But as far as listening to my intuition or whatever it was, but kind of trying to get my butt out of a little bit of trouble, if you will, trying to keep us safe. But it's interesting that it expanded at such a late stage, and the biggest thing that I understand with that is, whatever it was needed me to step into my abilities at this point in time.
Sure.
And saying, okay, here I am. And so, like I said, I've been doing this for about 8 years now total. It was about 8 years, and been 5 years that I've been retired. I've been doing this full time since. So it's, of course, it's very humbling work, and it's an honor to be able to do that each and every day. And of course, not only connecting with, the regular, what I would call back in my military days, the civilian population, but also I feel really humbled and honored to be able to work with fellow veterans and soldiers currently serving, and other folks, to be able to actually give back to them, and to work with them as well, to whether it's to work on traumas or to connect to doing the mediumship thing, as far as working, connecting to lost loved ones, or even friends that have been lost in combat or whatever, or even, unfortunately, we're dealing with so much depression and trauma that a lot of veterans are taking their lives as well. So there's a lot of folks dealing with that as well. So,
well, what was the reaction when some of your military brethren found out that you had? I mean, how did you come out?
Right.
Even publicly, even before
Right.
it was folks that you might have served with? How did you first put it out into the public sphere that you had these abilities?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because quite honestly, when I was doing that, I was kind of living a double life, right? So, I was a supervisor on my last, term of service, so my last tour, and I was kind of telling the guys around the water cooler type talk, and it was like, because during the week, there's only about 3 or 4 of us in the office, and then then you'd have on the weekends or 2 weeks out of the year or whatever, you have everybody else. And quite honestly, I was pretty guarded, Tim, as far as who I would tell, because before I got closer to retirement, I really I wasn't sure how it would be taken. I didn't want to be labeled as that guy, and I was really worried what people thought of me, or what my commanders or my supervisors would think. And then, of course, then I kind of I call it the old grumpy guy syndrome. As I got closer to retirement, I was like, what are they going to do? Bend my dog tags, make me retire? So I kind of got a little bit more, I guess braver would be a great word. But, I was like, really, I need to be honest about it. And a lot of people continued asking me, what are you going to do when you retire? And I was really vague. It was funny because thinking back on it, I would give really vague questions. Well, I think I'm going to go into the energy sector. So here they're thinking I'm going to be an electrician. I was laughing because I was like, how vague can you be about dealing with energy or entities or, different things? And I was like, and then finally, somebody had asked me, what I was going to be doing. And finally I just came out with it. And and it was really interesting because the concept that I had in my mind, that, here this is, thinking of a very guarded or very stiff military, regiment or something. When I came out about it, saying, quite honestly, I'm going to be working as a medium, and there was a lot of acceptance, and there was a lot of people very interested in that. And, and the thing that I've come to realize is it doesn't matter the profession that either you work in or somebody else works in, because people are people. And, regardless of whether they work in the military, government, doesn't matter, police, fire, plumber, doesn't matter. Somebody might be interested in it, and there's the other people that will say, well, I'll pray for you, and then they'll walk away very quickly. And that's okay too, because, at no time did I ever say that, try to make somebody believe in what I was doing and understand, saying, I get it because I've been there. And so it was kind of a touchy subject, because quite honestly, in the beginning, it was Dean the Soldier by day, and quite honestly, it was Dean the Medium by night, because after I took a 4-week mediumship course to really understand, mediumship and some of the fundamentals. And my mentor and trainer at the time suggested that I take a full year to really just give readings for free and, not worry about charging or anything. And I was like, well, that sounds about right, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so I really played with it and really, honed it over a year and change. And so quite honestly, it got to the point where, you start with friends and family, and then it goes from there to word of mouth. But then people started calling me and didn't know who it was. And so you're juggling the military schedule, the family schedule, and then quite honestly, I was like, well, I think I need to go down and get an appointment calendar or something, because now people actually want to schedule. And so I'm going to have to, see how this puzzle works out. But so, yeah, it was very interesting in the early stages. But it really feels, looking hindsight, it really feels like those early years really feels like it was drinking from the fire hydrant, so to speak, really fast paced.
Well, I mean, obviously, as you're getting going with this and happening so late in life, and my co-host Stephanie Burke here is a psychic medium herself, so
beautiful.
She might be able to offer some insight into this, but I'm assuming that if it happened that late at life, maybe it's happening at that accelerated pace, kind of catching up with kind of all that you had missed out, kind of getting you up to where whatever this ability felt you needed to be at this stage in your life.
Right. Well, and that could be, you know, and it's very interesting because everybody, you know, that I talked to after that, you know, everybody has a unique, I call them awakening stories. So when they, you know, whether they were aware when they were very young or whether it happened later in life or whatever, everybody has a unique story to it. And I always find it fascinating because everybody's different and, you know, and it's unique to them. And the thing is that, you know, for some, it's like it's almost where they, you know, where the universe needs them to get up to speed a little bit quicker, saying, hey, you weren't aware like for the last 30 years. So here's the deal. Here's a fire hydrant, and you're just going to drink from it for about a year. And then, you know, you'll be all right. And it's like, really? Can't you? So it's always interesting how that, for different folks, how it shows up. But it's always interesting to me, but fascinating. But
I think everybody's story is fascinating. And having this since I was born, obviously it's much different from how you came into yours. But I've taught people for years, and being able to teach, you know, hundreds of people for as long as I have, everybody's story is always different and always very unique. But more likely the reason why you felt like you're drinking from a fire hydrant, I can tell you there's still days that I still feel like that. Every spirit is different. Everybody that you come across is different. And the way that they talk and the way that they communicate is so fast and sometimes so overwhelming that it does feel that way, because at the end of the day, you're still a normal human. You might have strange powers, which are cool, but we're all normal, and we still think logically and analytically, and we still move at our own pace. So to jump into that mindset, everything flows so fast and people don't realize it. And it's always the most awkward thing, I think, for me when standing in front of a room of hundreds of people doing a gallery reading. They stare at you and it's the worst feeling in the world. So I always try to warn people ahead of time, like, hey, you can stare at me all you want, but I might take a second because I'm trying to make sure the information I get to you is completely accurate. But at the same time, they're talking so fast and the information is coming so fast. I'm trying to relay it as fast as possible. However, I can't go that fast. So just give me a second. So I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. But yeah, Tim, to kind of answer your question, that's my outlook, is all of us have to deal with basically being a translator, and it's 10 times harder than just translating a different, you know, normal language. It's a whole other language on a whole other level, and then sped up on top of that. Yeah.
Well, and that's, you know, that's a great point too, Stephanie, is you talk about the language piece is, you know, and they're vibrating at such a high rate. But one of the things that, you know, I tell my students, one of the interesting that you brought it up, is talking about where they get so frustrated. Everybody wants to go from 0 to 100, yep. Right? And saying there is no pill. You got to do the work. And saying, but one of the things that I always say is, here's the deal. If I threw you a book and it was all in Braille and say, read me chapter 2, and saying, could you do it? And saying, well, probably 99% of folks can't. And saying, but if you took the time to learn Braille, could you? Absolutely. And that's the same thing. You're learning a new language, so give yourself some grace. But sometimes it can feel overwhelming, absolutely, because it's like, oh my God, it's so much all at once and it's going so fast. It's like building your house right on an interstate and have to leave the garage going, whatever, 65 or whatever. And it's like, whoa, you know, it's like, you know, at first it can feel really overwhelming and exhausting, but then as you find your pace, but yeah, I completely agree with you in the language piece, and then also in the galleries as well. I can completely concur with you as far as it can feel a little awkward because I'm like, you know, it's like you're standing up there and it's like Bueller, you know, it's like, and so you try to preface that with saying, you're going to have to give me a minute. So if I look like, you know, I'm just standing up here, I'm trying to listen. So
right, and it's always awkward. So
it is. It kind of feels that way, and I'm sure it feels different than probably what it looks. It's probably our perception.
Oh, absolutely. I think so too, because people tell me all the time, "Oh, you're fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it."
It's like, really? Right? I love that. I love it. So beautiful.
I think we have a call on the line. We may have some issue with bringing on the caller and having the guest on Skype. Okay. So, if we need to kind of translate in the middle, we will.
Yep. Okay.
So let's go. And again, just want to point out that if anybody has a question for our guest, Dean McMurray, the military medium, you can call in at 508-996-0500. However, we're not going to be doing any readings right now. We'll save that for later on in the show if Dean's comfortable with that. Otherwise, for right now, we're just kind of getting to know him and know his story and finding out the answers to any questions that you may have about his gifts and about how they've affected his life. So keep that in mind if you call in. Good evening. You are on Spooky South Coast with Dean McMurray. How are you?
All right. How are you doing tonight, Tim?
We are spectacular.
Of course. I have a question for your guest. First of all, what is the basic kind of religious or philosophical background that you have as you have developed your sense of, based on your experiences and your mediumship and so on? Mm-hmm. What is the religious or philosophical viewpoint that you have developed? That's the
Sure. That's a great question. One of the things I'll just share with you is I was raised, growing up in northern Minnesota. I attended a Protestant church growing up. My mom was very big on, hey, go to church every Sunday. Like most traditional Christians, if you will, Easter, Christmas, all the big holidays, and then every Sunday go to Sunday school, all that great stuff. But I never felt that nothing against the organized religion or anything, or Protestants or any other organization, but I never really felt like I fit in. And that was one of my inklings that I kind of look back at. But as I developed in my spiritual self, I've really kind of looked at other religions and saying, is there, or other teachings, and, whether it's Taoism or Buddhism, and there's aspects of each, but, the biggest thing that I really kind of go back to is the premise of love. And it's kind of, I know it sounds really simple, but is it kind of coming more from the heart space? Is it more forgiveness? And I understand that, you got to understand, for 14 and a half years, my job in the Army was in the infantry. That's what I did. I was a paratrooper for about 6 of those years. So that, my training, my mindset, everything in the early years was completely far and away from what I had stepped into later down the road. But it really gave me a diverse contrast, and to look at saying, can you still be a warrior? Can you still be somebody that is in that sense of loving and forgiving, or in a sense of holding space for others, but yet still be that strong warrior type, if you will? And, that is the sense, I guess, to answer your question. I really don't connect with anything specifically. Actually, my wife and I actually joined a Lutheran church before my development, or my spiritual development, kicked off. We got married in a Baptist church. So it was kind of all, we didn't really identify with one specific religion or, dogma or mentality, but it's kind of just going with that heart-centered piece. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Have you ever even, thinking about something that Tim did recently, have you heard of a place called Lilydale?
I have.
Have you visited them, or have you an interest in visiting that place?
Well, maybe at some point in time, but I think that would be really neat to do that. But I have not. I have not personally been to Lilydale. I've heard of it.
Okay. Now, changing the subject slightly, in the course of your work, have you encountered anything that sort of walks in the direction of something like past lives and things like that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. When we start talking about getting into the nuances of some of the stuff that I've experienced during my journey thus far, absolutely. There's been numerous past lives that I've experienced. And it's interesting because not all of them, but a tremendous amount of them where I've served as a soldier was really interesting. But there was others where one where I was actually a medium. And that's how I met my wife. It was it's very interesting when we start exploring those past lives and different things. So I have.
No, I understand, because I have a reasonably good recall of my own past lives as well. However, as a final question here before the top of the hour, in the course of doing your work and so on, have you ever run into a situation where someone says, what about Uncle Bob? And you say, instead of saying Uncle Bob is here to talk to you and has his advice, you come up with a situation where Uncle Bob is not available right now. He's 7 years old, and he's going to first grade in the New York City school system.
Or you mean as far as being already reincarnated in the sense of that? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, because a lot of people want to connect with their long-lost relative or whatever else, and this is a common thing that happens. So here's Aunt Jane or Uncle Bob or whomever, and they come in, they offer their advice, and it would make sense that a being might already be reincarnated, and they're busy doing their thing. And for them to be distracted from their first grade or second grade education. Sure.
Well, my understanding is this. This is Dean's understanding thus far on souls are multidimensional. So whether Uncle Bob, or as we're using the example, it's interesting because I actually have a deceased Uncle Bob, which I find very interesting. But one of the interest, but
we'll acknowledge that. We'll just go on.
Right. But it's very interesting that as souls are multidimensional. So if Uncle Bob reincarnates and say he's sitting in kindergarten class or whatever he's doing at the moment, the connection, you're connecting to the aspect of the soul or the energy that is residing, that we'll just say Aunt Elsie wants to connect with, or whomever, maybe their son, daughter, whomever. However, when I have connected with folks, I have never gotten that saying, leave a message because unfortunately they've been reincarnated. I haven't gotten that piece, So because that energy is coexisting along with whatever's going on in the future self or the current self or however it's coexisting. That's my understanding.
You could have someone that is currently incarnated, but their full spiritual self is, that may be only a piece of what the full spiritual being is, and the full spiritual being could also turn around and have a conversation.
I think you'd be shortchanging yourself a little bit there as an individual if that was the case.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's and if you just kind of think too, there's been a lot of theories that Einstein has been reincarnated. A lot of folks believe that certain people are the reincarnation of Einstein, and so to connect with Einstein and retrieve some of that fascinating studies and data that this gentleman had, and then also look at this new prodigy child that is growing up and saying, "Oh my God," showing so many traits of Einstein that Einstein did at that age, and saying, could that be the case? The same theory goes to the I think it is with the theory of Buddha, right? So as one transitions, one reincarnates and is the reincarnated, Buddha or whatever. So yeah. So and like Tim said, I think you'd really be shortchanging yourself if you just say, well, that's it. We die, and then I'll get reincarnated. I'm good.
But I'm going to use that as an excuse for when I'm not paying attention to things, or when I don't do something I'm supposed to do. I'll be like, sorry, part of my soul is elsewhere. But
having a conversation with 15 other scryos and mediums
right,
around
exactly.
the world.
Thank you very much for the call.
You're welcome. Have a pleasant evening.
You as well.
Thanks.
And,
I love that.
And Moniz, you had a point you wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, if you got the possibility of reincarnating Einstein, that also brings the possibility of reincarnating Hitler.
Well, why not?
Yeah.
It could happen.
It depends on, what happens when we get there. Are evil souls trapped somewhere forever, or do they reincarnate? Who knows? We won't know till we get there. But there's a possibility of everything.
Evil continues to surface its ugly head. It
does.
So,
Total side note: do you watch Preacher, Moniz?
Actually, I do. That's not a bad series.
So you're wondering if Hitler's working at the subway next door. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I think, though, too, Dean, when talking about the idea of reincarnate, like we've had on Richard Salva a few times talking about reincarnation, and he believes that Abraham Lincoln was, reincarnated as Charles Lindbergh, and we've really kind of delved into the idea with him, and he's always kind of felt that I think he's quoted maybe like a 25-year window after your death where there's a transition period before you can reincarnate. And I've heard other people say you can't be reincarnated until after everybody that you knew is no longer looking to you for spiritual advice. And then other people say you could be a grasshopper within a week.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't believe the grasshopper thing.
No, I don't either, but I'm just...
The way it's always been presented to me was that, because people have asked me all the time, well, how can you, connect with my grandmother if we all reincarnate? They don't have a sense of time, we do. So their waiting period, I mean, we can't put a timeline on it because we're here, but their waiting period, so to speak, is a lot longer than what we're here for. So by the time we move on with our life, they're getting ready to reincarnate at that point. So... if that makes sense. It's also late, so.
Well, and I would agree with Stephanie as far as my understanding, as well as far as the timeline piece. And then there's another part of me that's saying, we're doing the best that we can to understand everything that's presented to us or conceptualize. And part of me believes that when we cross over, we're going to go, crap.
Right.
I had it all wrong. It's like
exactly.
You were doing, and everybody's like, we were doing our best to get you to understand. It's like
I tell people all the time, just because we know things ahead of time or we can connect to people that have passed on doesn't mean we get to know everything. We just get to know more than you do.
Right.
So there's a whole lot of secrets of the universe still out there that I'd love to know, but we only have a bit of an understanding of it. So we have to wait.
To be really honest, even if that was shared with us, we would just be sitting there looking like, just a blank look on our face, because there's only probably a few minds on this planet currently that would have the understanding enough to even conceptualize or put the picture together and saying, oh my God, it all makes sense. And instead of saying, yeah, really don't know what you just told me. I understand the words, but really doesn't make any sense to me. So I'll just write it down here in my book. Well, it's like, hopefully it'll validate later. So I think that there is a bigger picture too. And when we come to a deeper level or a more intellectual level of understanding the universe at a deeper level, then that piece will come into play.
And it takes us...
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it takes us a long time to understand certain pieces that are handed to us as well.
Right.
Like myself, I wouldn't answer questions on reincarnation for a very long time. It wasn't until I had a true understanding of twin flames that I understood reincarnation. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when it finally happened. And I was like, oh, I get it now. But I had to experience certain things within my life in order to understand what's been told to me my entire life. So,
go
ahead.
I was going to say, Stephanie, you probably have this experience as well, but I know that when I learned how to douse a home, or cleanse a home, one of the things I always thought was when I came into a home, I work a lot with archangels, so it was kind of like, hey, I got this badass group of angels with me. Nothing can mess with me. And we're just going to roll in, and any earthbound entity or anything nasty, guess what? Your butt gets thrown to the light. And I didn't really give any thought to, it was just like thinking back to my military days, right? Bust in the door, anybody that's not nice, get in the truck, get to the chopper, right? But I had an experience where a very real experience that spirit shared with me of my own death, and where I died, but it was talking about earthbound spirits, and where we actually kind of went on I'll just call it a journey, and just really understanding like different, each situation calls for different tact or decorum. And because some folks that are basically dead don't know that they're dead, and so if you roll into so kind of check first, so to speak, and kind of one of the things, because I always just went in saying, I don't care who you are, get off the bus, but I wasn't mean about it, but I just never messed around with it, but it was really shared with me that there were some spirits that were actually very scared because they were, they didn't know. They always, what about my wife? And it's like, well, you and your wife are both dead. You both died in the car accident, or you both drowned, or, or the gentleman that, somebody was shot. And it's like, it happened so quickly. They didn't even realize, because, one moment they were living or trying to protect somebody, and the next, this happened. And then it's like, I don't understand. They're confused. And there's a lot of, and just to get them to understand, hey, they are deceased, and you need to come with me so I can link you up with your loved ones. And I call it soul retrieval, as far as, connecting those lost souls, if you will, to, to their loved ones, or to the light, if you will. And so, yeah, it was very eye-opening. And anytime, it's very interesting, anytime that there's some misconception or misunderstanding, I always find that spirit will step in, or the universe for that matter, and really give, for me anyways, like a personal, almost like an upfront personal tour. And it's like, here, experience it so you know what it's like. And it's like, oh my God, it's like, and it, quite honestly, like shakes the holy what out of you. But I think for us as having this human experience, sometimes we need to put it in that frame of mind so we can share with our words to others, saying, do you understand that this is how it was shown to me, how it works? And so,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we do have a question from the chat room, and if anybody has any questions, just a reminder, in the chat room, help us out. And if you have questions for the guest, I know that, it's not proper decorum online to write things in all caps because it means you're shouting. But if you do have a question for the guest, if you can put it in all caps, it helps us differentiate from some of the side conversation going on. And of course, you can always call in as well at 508-996-0500. But one of the questions was, I know, Dean, that you said that you were retired and you were home when you started to have some of these initial psychic experiences, but you had kind of mentioned something that happened in Afghanistan. And the question in the chat room was, were you ever, in combat where you felt something where you were able to protect yourself and your fellow soldiers because of some sort of intuition, some sort of feeling that you got?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for the reminder to go back to the story. So I served in Afghanistan back in 2003, so quite a number of years ago, and we were doing I was in an infantry platoon, and we were doing a mounted convoy, which means a patrol with gun trucks. And I was kind of in the rear of the convoy. I wasn't in charge of it. However, we were doing it at night, and we were going on this route. And one of the things that we were always taught to never stop, especially not stop, of course, obviously for obvious reasons, in choke areas and possible ambush areas, but of course anywhere there's culverts and all that, obvious stuff. And that evening, for whatever reason, we had stopped. We stopped, and I guess the guys up front had one too many bottles of water. I don't know what was going on, and it was all of a sudden it was like a voice within me, and of course I know now it was my intuition speaking to me, but it was like, you need to move the vehicles now. And so of course I'm on the radio, hey, you need to move the vehicles up another, I don't know, 500 meters, whatever, just to get the rear vehicles out of this area. And of course the guys were out of the vehicle for whatever reason, and I couldn't get anybody on the radio. It was so odd. And so I actually had to get out of my vehicle and sprint forward. And I was talking with the lead vehicle patrol leader, and we actually heard an audible clicking noise, which is what we understood to be a detonation, IED, detonation noise, or detonator going off. And we both kind of just froze. And because really there wasn't much to do at that point, and but we heard where it was coming from, and of course we were scanning the area. But I said, we need to move now. And one of the reasons that we believe that it never went off is in the very early days, of course, there's a lot of great civilian contractors that work for the government. And this is nothing top secret to share with you guys. There's some technology that the military uses. Now it's way more advanced, but to defeat different IEDs. So some disrupt the radio waves, some disrupt things in different ways, right? And this thing, actually, we called it the black box because that's what it was. It was a big, ugly, and they put all the components. It was like putting a computer tower in a big ammo can. That's what it was. And it had a big switch, and it had a big fan. It was big and ugly, and it bolted to the back of our vehicle. It was really weird. And they said, every time you go out, turn this thing on, and have it in the one in the front and one in the rear, and it creates like a bubble, they told us. And we still believe to this day that that technology actually saved us. However, the thing that I reflect back on is that voice that came up and said, you need to move the vehicles. And it's like, looking back at that, it's like, wow, that obviously there was some, poor judgment that we made in that evening. However, if it wasn't for the technology, God only knows what would have happened. But thank God that, intuition was speaking up and kind of telling us to get our butts in gear and get the heck out, or at least move forward. And so it was really interesting. It's something that still stays with me, geez, that's been 15 years. Geez, that's crazy. But it's, whether, and that's something why I'm a huge proponent of folks to develop their intuition. Whether I don't care if you're military, I don't care if you're EMS, fire, ambulance, you could be a plumber or a lawyer. I don't care your profession, or if you don't have a profession. I just think about if young people could be cultivated and encouraged to develop it at a young age, and to let them know it's safe and it's okay to develop that, how important that could be for that young person. You think about how many young girls, young boys, potentially get in a dangerous situation growing up. whether it's at a party or go out. Hey, let's go out with friends. Let's get in the car. No, something tells me that it's not a good thing, other than just, listening to that inner gut and saying, are you listening? And, personally speaking, with I have 2 kids of my own. I got a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. And, we really, in my home specifically, we really enhance that and saying, we really honor that. If our kids tell us saying there's something, I don't get a good feeling about this. There's a difference, obviously. Sometimes, obviously, being a kid, you not want to do stuff, even as an adult. Heck, I don't want to do stuff some days. But there's a difference between getting a bad vibe around something and your gut telling you that isn't in alignment with what you need to be doing. You need to walk away from that. Mm-hmm. Or you need to, maybe you need to pay attention to this or walk away, or versus, I just don't like that. Well, there's a different, how many times, so there's a difference, but learning that, I guess, fine line to walk.
And learning like where it affects you and knowing the difference between just something not feeling right and having like a full out spidey sense. One of the other questions that came up in the chat room, and I'm going to kind of rephrase it a little bit because the question was kind of pointed directly toward any enemy that you may have taken out. So I'm going to kind of change that a little bit and say, have you been visited by either, soldiers that you may have served with that didn't make it back, or any of the enemy that were involved in the conflict? Have any of them come back to you in any form now that you've been able to develop these abilities?
Sure. Great. Absolutely. Beautiful question. So I was working full-time for the military, as I shared my last, it would have been my last 3 years before I retired. And I was the soldier walked in, and as they do at that time. But this guy was still in his desert fatigues, and I did a double take because he was physically there. And he was a squad leader that I served with in Afghanistan. And I was like, I almost going to go, holy crap, man, what are you doing? And I was thinking, what is he doing here in his desert fatigues? And they don't even wear desert fatigues anymore. I'm like, geez. But I was like, and then as soon as I did the double take, of course, he wasn't there. Well, that squad leader, about 6, let's see. So after we got back from Afghanistan, they went to Iraq about 3 to 6 months after returning home from Afghanistan. So it was quick turnaround at that time. So it was about 2003, 2004, and he died from a roadside IED about 2 to 3 weeks in the country. And of course, I was already transitioning, doing other things at the time, and I heard about his passing. Of course, it was sad to hear that, and it was challenging, but it was interesting because he showed up bigger than life, just in all his glory, a big goofy grin, and it was like, hey, dude, just like anybody would, like a friend would. And but I was like, and I did that double take, and it was like he disappeared, and it was so crazy. I was like, I couldn't remember when he passed, and I was like, why is he showing? I knew enough that I was like, there's a reason why he's showing up right now. And so, of course, I kind of Googled his name, and there was like a memorial page to him, and with his the date that he passed on there, and it was 3 days prior to his passing, he showed up, and a year, of course, a year later, and I was like, holy crap, that was pretty freaky. And I was like, so anyways, it was, so to answer the question, yes, did it happen? Yes. Now, enemy combatants or enemy soldiers, no, I haven't had any enemy soldiers or anybody like that show up, as far as, hey, kind of.
Which is probably for the best, because, I mean, obviously when you have the ability, you can figure out the discernment of when you're dealing with a spirit and when you're just, when you're not. But I could picture that being something where it would be kind of a question of conscience, and you would kind of wonder whether or not it was somebody actually coming back, or whether or not you were trying to kind of conjure this person to come forward because of whatever you were feeling about what happened.
It could be, and if I had that experience, I would have to, like you shared, Tim, discern that for myself. I think anybody having their own unique experiences would have to discern anything like that, saying, is that only because I'm thinking of that, because of, that firefight that we're in, or is that because they're actually coming to me in spirit? And, you have to discern that for yourself. And, and that's one of the biggest things with being a medium is sometimes, when you're dealing with your own loved ones, sometimes it's discernment for yourself. Is it because, but there's a level of trust and knowing that, saying, letting go of your ego and saying, not getting wrapped up in your head saying, oh my God, am I trying, saying, letting that piece go. What about this? What about that? So trying to let that piece go and really trusting what is to come forward and trusting the universal process. So.
And you mentioned that you provide readings for people who are in the military, and that you were. I'm assuming that you probably also get a lot of requests from family who have lost loved ones in the service, who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and that's got to be something that is. I don't want to use the term rewarding, but it's probably has that feeling for you because you are able to kind of understand where they're coming from with this loss, and you can kind of personalize it and run it through your own personal experiences better than just any other psychic that they may be able to encounter, who is obviously just trying to help them connect with a past loved one, but you understand all the emotions that go into what goes on there. Because a lot of times when people are looking for, and I'm sure Stephanie experiences this a lot, where you're looking to make a connection with somebody that you've lost tragically or unexpectedly, or maybe there was some sort of an unresolved issue between the two of you, as opposed to the military, you're dealing with a lot of spirits that probably are coming back and saying, hey, listen, I know what I signed up for, and I knew that this was a possibility. I knew this was a potential eventuality.
Right. Yeah. And, that's, and not that I, obviously being, just like you said, Tim, am I able to connect on a deeper level with those that have served and those families and understand some of that sacrifice at a deeper level? Absolutely. And, obviously doing this work, it's very rewarding at all levels, but yet at the same time, it's extremely humbling because it puts a lot of those, because as a medium, you're able to become very personal with that person on their journey for however long your session is. And it really puts it in a different perspective for you. So as you become whatever life experience you have, so, being a soldier, once I became a parent, once I got married. So those put different experiences or perspectives for me. And so, if somebody loses a spouse or somebody loses a child, those in itself are sad. But the thing is for me personally, when I walk away from it, it puts it in a different light and kind of really, I learned to take life, on at a different level and really make sure that, in fact, today I was telling my 12-year-old saying, hey, you know that I love you. And I get the eye roll, of course.
Sure, yeah.
But right, the comment. But the thing is, how many times that somebody passed without really sharing that they, didn't love them or didn't get the opportunity to share that and saying how proud they were of them or whatever. And those last messages or those, and they're always, I think it's a human connection that we're always yearning to, just make one more last connection.
And speaking of that, and I kind of want to take a step back to the question that I asked previously. Have you ever had anyone who has come to you for a reading that is someone who served in the military? The living person is coming to you and saying, I need to reach out to, somebody that they had to take out as part of their duty. Have they ever tried to reach out to somebody whose life they may have had to take in the course of their service?
I have not as of yet.
Would you take that on if that person did come to you? Would that be something you'd be open to doing?
Well, I would certainly stay open to that. I would certainly not say no. However, because the thing that I always share is I always kind of put it out there to the universe. I'm always staying open to, in any capacity that I can serve the universe, and you never know what that's going to entail. That's a really, kind of a blanket statement. But the thing is, if it's something that I'm able to provide, if I'm able to provide that connection, and I'm able to connect to, because I always share, I only connect to that which is, that is divine in nature. So if that, and I'm just going to use the example, if that enemy combatant or whomever, it doesn't matter whether if they are not, if they have not crossed over, I'm not going to sit there and communicate with it, because it will only sit there and drain my energy. So I don't typically chit chat a long, detailed, chatting session with something that is very negative in nature. Now, if I feel immediately that the individual or individuals have crossed over, then, by all means, would I make that attempt if that's something that somebody is interested in doing. But it's a great question. I've never had that asked. I've had some interesting requests in the past, but I've never had that one.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we would like to give you the opportunity to kind of, let the audience experience what it is that you do. So we'd like to have you take some calls and offer some readings, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
All right, before we get into that, though, and to give Dean a moment to kind of warm up for that, and again, if you want to check out his website, DeanMcMurray.com, he is the military medium, and if you go to his website, of course, you can find out more information about being able to book a one-on-one reading with him and to find out where he may be. But before we get into all that, I want to let everybody know about Parabox Monthly real quick, and if you have not heard of Parabox Monthly yet, well, we've been talking about them for a while here on the show. They're actually now one of the sponsors of the Plymouth Paracon. So they'll have some representation there as well. They print out these silk-screened, soft-style T-shirts that are super comfortable, that actually have puzzles built into them. And those puzzles are in the form of codes, ciphers, riddles, numbers, and images, or other hidden gems. So you actually get to wear this nice, comfortable shirt, but also try to figure out where to go next. And you can check out some of their themes that include ghosts and haunted locations, UFO encounters and aliens, folklore and legends, cryptozoology, urban legends. They have a line of Amityville shirts. They have a line of Art Bell shirts. So you can try them out for yourself. You can choose a month-to-month plan, a 3-month plan, or a 6-month plan. There are no contracts. You can cancel at any time. So give it a try. You've got nothing to lose. And if you go to paraboxmonthly.com and you use our code SPOOKYLIVE, you will get 10% off. So just go to paraboxmonthly.com, enter the code SPOOKYLIVE for 10% off on some of their fantastic T-shirts. And I'm going to see if I can get some more Parabox shirts to rock at Plymouth Paracon, because some of those Art Bell and Amityville shirts are really cool. So looking forward to rocking some more of that. And again, paraboxmonthly.com, use the code SPOOKYLIVE for 10% off. All right, so if you would like to get a reading from our guest, Dean McMurray, the military medium, you can do so by giving us a call at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. I'll say this right now for the listening internet audience on YouTube and in our chat room and listening to us on SpookySouthCoast.com. Don't hesitate to call in if you want to get a reading, because right now we are not on the actual radio, so you have that advantage over the regular listeners. Once things click over and we go on the AM radio and I say, we're taking calls for readings, the phone lines are going to light up. So trust me on that. We've always said, you know, we sit around here sometimes on the show and say, I wonder if anybody's actually listening to us. And then when we have a medium on, the phone lines are just lit up through the whole show. So keep that in mind. And so Dean, do you have a preference for how we take the calls? You want them to just kind of give you their name and say who they want to connect with, or just ask a question, or what? How do you want to work this?
Why don't you? I would really like it if they could come on, say their name, and then ask their question, and then we'll go from there.
All right. So that's the way that we'll do it. And some of these people that are on hold may not have heard that because they're probably hearing the Red Sox post game. So good evening. Right. So, you are on with Dean. Oh, well, we're going to need you to turn down your computer, please.
So good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
We're going to need you to turn down your computer, please.
Hello.
Hi. You're on the air with Dean McMurray.
Hi, Dean. My name is Lois, and I was just wondering if you saw anything about my finances changing.
Okay. So thanks for calling in, Lois. So you want to know about or see if I see anything with finances changing around you?
Yes, please.
Are you currently looking at changing up with a job or kind of in between jobs right now?
No.
Okay. Okay. Are you currently employed? Let me ask you that. Okay, you're not. All right. You know, I really don't feel it's interesting because it feels very stagnant for you, Lois. I really don't feel anything immediately changing for finances around it. And it's almost like where I want to say is saying almost like the energy of like Social Security or something like that. But the thing is that I would really share is if especially if you're in the market of looking for a job. I don't know if you are or not, but that certainly falls outside of your current living area. The energy feels very flat in that sense. Now, here's what I'm going to share, because I know a lot of people are going to be asking about probably future stuff when it comes. Understand that when we start talking about anything in the future is always evolving. So anything we do or don't do in the current moment is always shaping the future. So understand that could there be something that steps in to change that? Absolutely, there's always that possibility. But currently, I don't feel anything that changes that currently. Do you understand?
I do. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for the call.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
And for those of you who are on hold, you may be hearing the show now on hold. For those of you who are listening on the radio and are just joining us in progress, this is Spooky South Coast, and we are talking with our guest, Dean McMurray, the military medium. His website is deanmcmurray.com, and we are taking calls right now for readings at 508-996-0500. If you call in, just give Dean your name and your question. So we'll move on to the next call. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast with Dean McMurray.
Hi, my name is Damien, and I have a question. Both my parents are deceased, and I kind of want some closure, I guess. Are they okay, or because I mean, no one knows what comes next. I mean,
are you still with us, Dean? Can you hear the question?
Yeah, I couldn't. He cut in and out. I'd have easier time listening to an EVP because that was in and out.
This is Damien on the line. He's wondering if his parents are around him.
Okay, your parents. Okay.
Yeah, they passed away when I was young, and I was just wondering, how are they?
Parental energy around. Absolutely, I feel a lot of loving energy around you. One of the things is it's interesting is because I get a tremendous amount of signs around you, really letting you know that there are a lot of spirit support around you. And it's just about really trying to open up and be aware of those signs. Have you been and I know this sounds odd, but have you been having a lot of light issues going on in your home?
A little bit, yeah, actually.
You might have to relay Tim because he's cutting in.
Yes, he has. He says he has had some light problems.
Okay. So, and it's interesting because I just saw the lights, and if you will, they were showing me lights. So one of the things, I'm understanding that that's one of their signs. However, the thing is really try to stay open to, the signs from spirit. Just really trying to let you know, Damien, that they are around supporting and loving you. But at the same time, I feel that you're kind of, you can kind of feel that as well, that really just kind of that empath piece as far as knowing that they're with you. So continue asking for signs and just try to stay open. But thank you for your call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And we will move on to our next caller because the lines are stacked, but we do have room for you, 508-996-0500. And we're just going to go rapid fire with these, Dean. If you feel like you need to take a break at any point, just let us know.
All right, let her shoot.
All right. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast with the military medium, Dean McMurray.
Hey, good evening, Tim. My name is Colleen, and good evening, Mr. McMurray. I had a really...
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can. Matt, what do you turn this down? Okay, so Colleen is on the line, and Colleen, what was your question?
I had a really kind of terrifying experience in 1996, and I was wondering if any of the spirits around me, or if Dean could tell me whether or not it was real. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that you can answer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Did you, and let me ask you, Colleen, because one of the first things that I got around that, did you have what I would call almost, it would be labeled as like a night terror or whatever, where you really got almost like paralyzed, or in a sense? Did you?
No, sir. I was completely awake.
You're okay. So in that sense, was that where you were having the experience, in that did you feel a sense of paralyzation?
While I had it, I did feel it, but I was completely awake.
Okay. And sometimes it depends how they and really who they are, but how they describe it. As far as I've heard, some night terrors some folks describe it as being awake, some are actually asleep. So it's kind of on the different sense. But where it almost feels like where your experience, as you share, is like terrifying in a sense, where I would say like a dark entity. Would that be correct? And kind of like a real, where it feels really heavy to me.
No, it was really heavy. What happened was, I think, I had a vision of something that was happening at that time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I did get some validation on it, but I still have a hard time believing that it happened.
This is what I'm getting from this, Colleen, is that you are connecting at such a deeper level of events that are going on, is that in a sense you're almost putting yourself in the actual energy of the event. Do you understand that? So
I do.
Okay, so sometimes this happens with empaths and different folks, even if they're not aware of it, is that they can become so energetically attached to, sometimes it could be traumas, different events, tragedies, whatever, that they're energetically there and they can feel it, they can experience different things, whether it's visions or hear things, or actually feel traumas or different things. So understand that experience was real. What I would suggest to you is really start learning how to, if you haven't already, really how to harness your abilities, just so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Because quite honestly, it can feel like it would drive a sane person crazy. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes. Okay. Because it freaks me out.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. Have a great night. And we have some lines open, 508-996-0500, if you would like to get a little reading with Dean McMurray, the military medium. Again, DeanMcMurray.com is his website. And we will take another call here. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast with Dean McMurray. What's your name and what's your question?
Hi, my name is Rachel. And I know I'm aware that I have gifts. But in our household, we've been noticing a lot of activity going on. And I'm just wondering what that's all about.
What's that all about? Saying, why don't you leave me alone, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
So you're aware that you have gifts, but have you stepped into them?
Part of me does, but part of me has fear, so I don't step into it completely.
Because this is what I feel around it. When I just kind of tap in really quick to the activity, does any of it might feel freaky or seem kind of freaky, but as far as saying, hey, what's going on, it really it feels to me like they want you, not only you, but it feels like there's at least one other, if not more, people within the residence to really step into their abilities. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you really need to find a safe space, somebody that you resonate with, and whether you start taking classes. And here's the thing that I would share, and this kind of goes back to the previous caller too, is the number one most readily available resource, and it's actually the cheapest as well, is read. Arm yourself with knowledge, but also if you resonate with the teacher maybe in your area or an intuition class or whatever, wherever you live, you know, those are always great developments, but you know, find a safe place.
I did try. I did take classes with a gentleman, but it just, I guess that's the right word. He didn't resonate with me.
You didn't resonate.
I understood everything that he was saying, but it didn't point me in a direction that I thought I should have been going in.
Yep, and that's okay. Understand that sometimes when we're not feeling it, even though they might be a decent teacher, decent at what they do, but you just weren't feeling it, that's okay, because we resonate energetically with people at different levels. And if you're just not connecting, saying, even with teachers, saying, you know what, nothing against you, but no. And in my journey so far, have I done that a lot of times? Absolutely. I've looked for teachers in different areas and saying, no, but I've met a lot of great people. You know, but
he wanted me to go into a channeling kind of thing, and that's where my fear kind of came in. And I always thought maybe I should be going in a healer direction, like Reiki or something like that.
Well, if that's the area that you feel guided to do, then go and explore that. Go with what your heart, I would share, what is your heart telling you to do? Not your head. What is your heart telling you to do?
Healing and teaching.
Well, there you go. Go heal and teach.
And
that's what that energy is around, just trying to push us.
That it's trying to get spirit is really trying to get your attention, saying your abilities and everybody else around you, those abilities of people that are living in the home, need, you know, really urging you to step into your abilities.
Well, they're certainly making themselves known. So.
Well, thank you very much for the call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. And again, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420 if you want to call in toll free. And Dean, this is just a little bit of what you can offer. People can book an appointment with you through your website, DeanMcMurray.com, right?
Yep, that's correct. If you feel guided, go and check that out. And then as well as there's other services listed there as well. And then, you know, you can peruse the site and different, I'm always adding and changing up events and such. So if they want to find out where I'm at, they can check that out as well.
And also, did I see you do something with Facebook Live? Is that something you still do?
Yeah, so we started a little series called Off the Radar with the military medium, and what we wanted to do was be able to give folks a opportunity for a free reading, but live on the air, because a lot of folks were always asking me, well, what does a reading with you entail? And first off, it was kind of like showing what actually reading is. But the other piece is it was really more about telling people's story and helping other people that were watching, because I'm sure Stephanie can relate to this, talking about galleries, is when you could give, say if you have a room of 500 people or better, and you could give 12 readings, but you're really healing or helping, say 20, 30, 50, whatever, there might be a lot of people that are resonating with those messages. And I think that's the beautiful piece about galleries, and where it resonates, it touches so many other people, and like, oh my God, I know you were giving a reading to this lady over here, but it was like you were speaking to me. And it's like, that is the beauty of galleries. Spirit has a way of touching so many more than just the one, the individual that was read. And it's, so I think that's a cool aspect. So
yeah, I noticed that when I was in Lilydale, because part of working in Lilydale as a registered medium is you have to, you can hang your shingle out and take your own private readings, but at the same time, you're required to be part of some of the communal services that they offer to the people who are coming and visiting for the day. So, you're paying $24 a person to get in to spend the day there, and then they have, in the Forest Temple, they have services, in the auditorium they have services. So there's all these different places where you can go, or Inspiration Stump, where you can go and have these gallery readings that just kind of pop up and happen. And I noticed with a lot of the mediums there that they were kind of putting out some, they start generally and then they kind of narrow down based on what they're picking up. But there's a lot of people that were going up to them afterwards saying, at first I thought you were talking to me, and although you weren't, it still was beneficial for me to hear what you were saying to that other person.
Right,
so it certainly had that kind of effect on those crowds.
Right. Yeah. Well, in one story relating to that, I did a gallery at Paracon here in Shooting Star Casino in Monoma, Minnesota, and I was the featured psychic last year, and so I was doing a nice gallery event. There was about 400 or 500 folks in attendance, and Spirit was bringing forward a what I call the angel Christmas tree, and we're talking about this Christmas tree that was almost more like a memorial. And after I get done the gallery, I lost count of how many people came up to me about this Christmas tree. And after a while I started laughing, because I said, absolutely. I said, of course you're coming up, because that's just the way it works. And I was just in awe, and I was like, wow. I said, this is just crazy. I said, of course I did a reading for one lady that really resonated with it, but, and we talk about this, what I call the angel Christmas tree, but it was really interesting. All these different folks came up and talked about the specifics about, whether it was a ornament or whatever. It was it was really cool. So I still get goosebumps when that stuff happens, and it's just like, that is so neat to me I'm just like, really, that's just kind of awe-inspiring in a sense.
And I do recommend, I know that caller had mentioned to you Lilydale earlier, I do recommend going there and certainly like spend a weekend, so that you're not kind of under the gun and rushing around to do all kinds of stuff, because it's certainly a great place to connect. And I don't mean that in a spiritual sense, but just to connect and to network with people, and just to meet other people that have the same gift, and to meet other people who are looking for those that do. So
beautiful.
We're hoping to go back next year, and if we do, we'll give you a heads up. Maybe you can come by the same time we're out there.
That would be fun.
And 508-996-0500 is the number. We have about 10 minutes left in the show if anybody wants to call in to get a reading with Dean McMurray. He is the military medium. If you want to, maybe you want to have a reading, but you don't want to call in and share your question with the listening audience, you can book a private reading with him through his website, deanmcmurray.com, and that's where you can also find out more about him and where he'll be as well. Again, 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast with Dean McMurray. Can we have your name and your question?
Hi, my name is Matt, and I was wondering if my grandparents have any messages for me.
Grandparents. Well, one of the first things, Matt, is, and I got to share this, is just when you kind of disconnecting to you and their energy is just a tremendous amount of love and support around you. The first message that I really get is just pride, the immense amount of pride. It's just like, we're so proud, and it's just like continually, like it's like, okay, let's. But the other piece is that talking about building, I keep on seeing, and it's almost like I'm being shown like a what I would almost call like a pole barn in our area. The Midwest, we call it kind of a pole barn looking building, and I see it partially built as far as like the frame and everything, but I see like part of the sheathing or the metal on it. And actually, to be very specific, I see some as white and brown. Now, I don't know the details as far as that. I don't know if you're building a pole barn or if you're building a business. But the thing is I'm understanding is what they're talking about is this really being excited about this energy associated with this, as far as this new venture, this new building. So, and just a lot of expansion. The other thing that I'm also being shared or told is talking about celebration, because I keep on being shown balloons. One of the things, Matt, that really usually typically tells me is that there is a significant date either just past or coming up for you or your family. Is there a specific date that just passed or is coming up for you that you guys are celebrating, or maybe in remembrance of something? Could be announcement of a birth or anniversary, even of a passing, something like that.
Yeah, probably about next month. But
okay. So just understand, and that's just it's just validation and remembrance of just saying that when you're celebrating or remembering, they're with you as well around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Beautiful. Thanks, Matt, for the call.
Thank you.
And if you don't know what the pole barn connection is, you could always just come and build one at my house, because I could use one.
It's a nice building.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Build it here.
Again, 508-996-0500. The lines are open if anybody wants to call in to speak with the military medium, Dean McMurray. When you're doing those gallery readings, Dean, you have all of those different energies that are out there. And, I'm sure you've got just as many people sitting there. Well, maybe not just as many, but I'm sure there's a good portion of the people that are sitting there that are skeptical about what you do.
Sure.
Do you find does that skepticism shut down anything from coming through for them, or do you find that
No, and the thing, because I get it, I was there. Mm-hmm. You got to remember my story, and so I completely get it. And I always share with folks, it's not my job to prove or disprove anything, and it's I always kind of throw that back to spirit and saying, and if somebody can't validate something, I always trust that they absolutely will, maybe a little bit down the road. They just have to think about it a little bit. Do I feel that it shuts them down? No, because I'm not reading their body language. I'm not, I'm connecting not only to, I'm connecting to their loved ones, which is, the channel is always open there. But, at times, do I pick up on some energy with them, on the psychic aspect? Absolutely, I'll bring some of that flavor through, but for the most part, I'm connecting to spirit on their behalf. So it's, I haven't found where it diminishes their connection, but I did have a lady, this is years ago, come to my office, and we were doing a face-to-face, and she was very adamant when I connected to her deceased husband, and she was very adamant about as far as certain aspects of the reading, And it was kind of bordering on, I don't want to say neurotic, because I'm certainly not a person to, I'm not in a position to diagnose anybody, but I kind of had to remind her, saying, hey, I'm a medium, I'm in charge of the reading. And she was very directing, but she was, and I did understand that she was in a place of, is obvious, dealing with a lot of emotion. She was dealing with a lot of different things, but it was kind of it was kind of different. It was one of my more different readings. And the reason that I say that, there was some, she was very adamant about aspects of the reading. And I was like, hey, here's the deal. And so I kind of had to let her know how the reading is going to work.
Sure.
So it was always interesting, but that's a thing. And maybe Stephanie, I'm sure you can relate to this too, is sometimes it's, you get some very interesting aspects or experiences when it comes to that, because you're connecting to so many different people from all walks of life.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're in a crowd like that. I know Stephanie tries to avoid being in crowds.
I don't like
for that
crowds.
very reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I get so wiped out. It's just like, ugh, and it's like.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I've gotten better at the whole crowd thing and being around a ton of energy. But if I have to do like a all-day convention or a 3-day convention, I need to just like run away for an hour or so.
Oh, sure.
Just to kind of collect myself. But being in crowds, I think I bartended for years, and I think that's what really cured me of ever being around crowds again, because it's like the worst type of energy that you could be around.
I can imagine.
It's not easy at all, and I'm sure your military background makes you not want to be in certain situations anyways, outside of your abilities.
Right. Well, yeah, it's sometimes it is very, like you said too, is even at expos, I can, even if it's an all day thing or, like you say, 2 or 3 day thing, it's like completely, sometimes you can feel completely wiped if you're not taking that self-care and taking time to actually leave and go or just walk around just to burn off what I call kind of burning off the energy. And it's just like, I learned early on, because after my very first expo I ever did, and it was a 1-day expo, and I was very conscious about holding my energy and all this great stuff. And by the time I got done with the expo, I was very busy. I was very excited. And of course, being very new to everything, I was like, wasn't taking a break. And I think the only thing I had to eat or drink that day was like a Coke and peanut M&Ms, right? Peanut M&Ms. And so, which was kind of crap anyways. And, but I didn't take a break. And at the end of the day, I had a migraine. I don't get migraines. And I had a migraine so bad, I was literally the last reading, I had my head almost on the table, rubbing my temples going, and then I was like, and your grandma says that, I think back on it, and I kind of laughed, but I'm like, that wasn't even funny, because when I left, I didn't know whether I wanted to go out in the parking lot and get sick, or if I needed to go to the doctor, because I was almost seeing double, and I had a 3-hour drive back to my home. And what it took is I stopped and had something to eat, and it took me, I want to say, about an hour and a half before I actually started to feel normal again. And I was like, wow, did I get wiped? But I really learned. So now every time at an expo, I'll actually, I usually have like a little sign up deal as far as times and such, and for readings, and I'll put in there as far as like if I want to take a 20-minute break, whatever. And of course it allows you to use the facilities, but I kind of like checking out other vendors too, you know?
When you're there, you want to meet people.
Well, who doesn't like a crystal chakra something, it's like, but I like checking, there's so many cool vendors that come to those things. You never get a chance. If you're a vendor, you typically don't get the opportunity to check everybody else out. or just say hi to old friends or make new friends. And it's like, if you're always busy. So I just like to shake off the energy a little bit, make a few laps, if you will, and or sometimes I'll leave the expo hall and, you know, grab something to eat or just do something.
Right.
And,
Yeah, you kind of have to. So we only have a few moments left in the show. We have 2 calls on the line. I can go a few moments over a little bit, but we'll make these the last 2 calls.
Okay.
I do have to just do a little business here, so hang on one second.
You bet.
All right, now we are all legal, and we will take these last 2 calls before we say goodbye to Dean for the night. So we will get through these quickly. Good evening. You're on next with You're on with Dean McMurray, the military medium. Do we have your name and your question?
Yes, good evening. I'm just wondering if you could give me some information, a short reading, because I know the time is limited.
Yeah, what can I ask your name?
Flo.
Flo.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Flo, one of the first things that I pick up for you is you do have a few stepping forward. One of the interesting things, I do have an older gentleman that I would understand that passed, I want to say in his late 70s, early 80s from cancer. One of the things that I keep on smelling smoke around him, so I'm understanding that he was a smoker. And also stepping forward, what I understand is on the mother's side of the family, I do get a female that does step forward, and I keep on having us flow in her lung area. So feels like she would have battled on and off with pneumonia and such, but it feels like she actually passed from heart issues. But one of the biggest things, Flo, is that going forward for you is really talking about the number 3 is very significant, because I keep on seeing it show up several times for you. It feels like the 3rd year. That's what I keep on hearing. Now, I don't know what the significance is for the 3rd year, but it's almost like the anniversary of. So the thing is, you know, whether you're in remembrance of somebody's passing or something like that, but the thing is understand is as you go forward, it feels more like you're just needing that support or just knowing that you're really not alone as you go forward. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, beautiful. Thanks, Flo, for calling.
Thank you for the call.
Yes, you were very interesting. Very interesting program tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we will take our last call of the evening. Good evening. You are the last call on Spooky South Coast with Dean McMurray. Can we have your name and your question?
Sure, it's Daniel. Dean, I was just curious. I am in my current relationship. Is it something that's going to grow, or is it something that I should move on from?
All right. So your current relationship. So one of the things I would share, you know, for Daniel and anybody else is, you know, obviously what side of the grass is always going to be greener for individuals is you know, obviously the ones that we water. But the thing is understand that sometimes we understand that sometimes things are just toxic, and we understand that it's not healthy for us any longer. And that's almost kind of what it's feeling like, is where in the sense where you can feel the toxicity in a sense, and where you have been for a long time. And what I'm understanding is we're really putting off the inevitable. Could it change? Could it? Yes, it could. However, the thing is, I'm not feeling, I'll just use the word, that spark or that zing of what you would think of a really deep connection. So whether you guys have lost it and longing to reconnect, but I'm not feeling that reconnection currently. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, it does.
All right. Thanks,
right.
Daniel.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
And that about does it for tonight's show. Thank you again to our guest, Dean McMurray, the military medium. You can check out his website, deanmcmurray.com. Dean, where can people come out and see you in the coming weeks?
Well, I'm going to be in Bismarck, North Dakota, coming up here the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of August. Some changes. I actually was going to be in Michigan, but some things changed up there. And then we're going to do a joint actually a Facebook Live. It's going to be something a little bit new. We're going to do a Facebook Live investigation with a local paranormal team out there, and then I'll also be doing a cleansing of a home. And then, of course, I'll be doing a gallery on the 24th, and then some personal readings in there. And then there's all kinds of different stuff that's popping up. So just jump over to my website, dmcmurray.com or themilitarymedium.com, and check me out, or Facebook at Psychic Medium D. McMurray, the Military Medium, and where I usually post all the up-to-date stuff.
Excellent, excellent. And hopefully we look forward to meeting up with you if you're ever out in our neck of the woods sometime, or if we cross paths. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us, Dean. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys, for having me on. It was a pleasure.
That is, again, Dean McMurray, the Military Medium. Thank you to everyone who called in tonight. And, of course, we'll be back next Saturday night when our guest will be Steve Ubaney. We'll be talking about who murdered Elvis Presley. You think that Elvis just, died of a heart attack on the toilet? Well, Steve Ubaney is going to tell us who actually murdered the King of Rock and Roll. We'll be talking about that just a few days after the anniversary of the King of Rock and Roll's passing. So tune in next Saturday night at 10 o'clock. Remember, you can check out all of our past episodes on the archives of SpookySouthCoast.com, on our podcast feed through iTunes and wherever podcasts are found, although we are still having some podcast issues, but we are working on getting those resolved. We swear it is not us. We are putting the podcast up there. It's just our podcast server is having some issues with them. So we'll find a way to get them up there separately. I think I have a way of something we can do to at least stem the tide a little bit for folks. But you can always check out the YouTube videos on our YouTube page through SpookySouthCoast.com as well. So until next week, for Matt, for Stephanie, I'm Tim. We want you all to stay spooktacular.